Listo ganado sa Nutri-Chunks.
Regent assorted cakes. Made from high-grade ingredients baked to perfection. Comes in a variety of luscious flavors wrapped in a light, delectable sponge cake so soft and moist. A great tummy filler snack anytime, with flavors to choose from for everyone. Regent assorted cakes in ube, pandan, mocha, melon, and strawberry flavors. By Regent.
Making life sweet is easy dahil 35 pesos SRP lang ang San Miguel flavored beer. Make life sweet with San Miguel flavored beer.
You're watching CNN Philippines special coverage of President Bongbong Marcos's first State of the Nation address. Let's go back to our political analyst, Richard Haydarian. My turn to ask you.
Sure.
What do you want to hear from the President's State of the Nation address?
Well, definitely I'm not looking forward to a 4-hour address as much as he wants to give 4 hours. I understand. Siguro si Pangulong Marcos, alam niya daming constituencies 31 million yung bumoto sa kanya, 100 million plus ang may umaasa sa kanya. Ang daming problema. I understand yung, I think yung sense of obligation niya to explain everything. So, the first thing I want to see is wala siguro masyadong ad-lib. And all we have seen that in the past presidents. Clean, short, precise, straight to the point. Less rhetoric, more substance. We saw a lot of that in the inauguration already. Pangalawa, I want to see where he's going to diverge and where he's going to have continuity with the former president. That has to be clear to me. Kasi,
why?
Well, because no administration is perfect. I think there were certain things with the previous administration that can definitely be improved upon. For instance, yung drug war. I think we're all against drugs, but methods matter. So yung issue na extrajudicial killings, yung lack of due process or due diligence, human rights issues, the very things that he didn't talk about in inauguration, human rights, corruption, justice, things that he didn't touch on much on during inauguration. Gusto ko makita dito sa inauguration, as a SONA speech
niya. Do you think it'll be part of it?
I think he'll touch on them. Now, whether it's pro forma lang, para lang ganun, or more engaging in an emotional, conviction-based way, let's see. Not to mention, of course, issues with corruption. What is he going to do, for instance, with the Presidential Commission, good governance, right? Which has targeted his family for quite a long time, right? What about on issues like taxes? Is he going to increase taxes or not? I think marami sa ating taong bayan gusto nila malaman yan. Kasi a month or two ago, Secretary Jokno was confident, hindi natin kailangan. But now the picture is quite different. Yeah. Baka medyo kailangan na. Sino ita-target muna? Big companies pa or lahat tayo? So there are also going to be things close to our pockets that I want to hear about.
Was there a statement made recently by Secretary Diokno that new taxes...
Secretary Diokno maintained more than a month ago that hindi natin kailangan.
Exactly.
But Secretary Balisacan perhaps has suggested perhaps we have to make some adjustments on the tax front. And I don't think Secretary Diokno will disagree with him given the developments on the ground, the international environment, domestic environment. So I want to see kung tataas ang buwis, paano yan? Sino matatarget dyan? Saan tayo mag-move? Is it on online transactions, for instance? How much the SMEs will be affected? How much the big conglomerates will be affected? Or will this be more like more efficient tax collection in terms of tax effort.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you there. I spoke to Senator Franklin Drilon about this. Are we talking about new taxes? Because he said we need to generate more funds. So I asked him, are we talking about new taxes or a more efficient tax collection?
Yeah.
And then he said, sa tagal-tagal na niyang politician, palagi na pag-uusapan yan, mahirap talaga yung sasabihin mong efficient tax collection. Not in those words, but that was the theme.
Yeah.
To which he said, new taxes.
Yeah, so it's rather you expand the base, same efficiency, or you keep the base, enhance the efficiency. You move horizontal or vertical. But the reality, Pinky, is that the Philippines has very low tax collection efficiency. Our tax effort, that's a technical term, is around 15 to 16%. It's up to 35% in France, for instance, in some of the more efficient countries. Even compared to similar countries like us, emerging markets, ang natatalong lang natin, mga katulad ng Colombia and Indonesia. So there's a lot of room for improvement on tax efficiency or tax effort. But
So the solution would be?
well, I mean, you streamline the process, more effective enforcement of tax laws, right? Give more jurisdiction power, enforcement power to the BIR and other agencies. Pero the other thing kasi is, Pinky, maraming mga tax breaks din na binibigay sa mga malalaking kumpanya. Yung sa tax on online transaction, which is big because of the digital economy, it's an infrastructure still under development. So I think there are new areas of taxation that the government can move in. Ako naman, the way that President Marcos can go around it, if I were his advisor, I would say this. Yes, pwede namin itaas yung taxes. Kailangan talaga yan. But ita-target namin yung mga mas may kaya or pwede magbayad. At the same time, what we raise in additional, we'll put into subsidies. Because Secretary Jokno said up to 90 billion pesos ang pwede pumunta sa Pantawid Pamilya, the 4Ps, sa fuel subsidy. So there's a way to balance this out, to calibrate it, whether you don't hurt those who are most vulnerable, and then you, kumbaga, progressive taxation.
Let me ask you this. Don't you think that the middle class is already hurting as well?
Oh, definitely they are. Okay. That's why, siguro, kung ikaw yung presidente, sino ang most expendable, right? Doon mo malalaman That's why you want specifications So my fear sometimes that the president will not want to give specification because they don't want to alienate specific constituencies. But we are looking at the dark clouds gathering over the horizon and it's almost inevitable. Something has to give You cannot have it all, diba? Hindi pwede mas mataas yung subsidy, at the same time mataas yung debt mo, yung growth rate mo naman hindi ganun kataas. At the same time, you don't want to raise taxes. It's kind of hard to do all of that. Unless he has a very efficient plan of enhancing tax collection.
Unless he's thinking of something that you haven't thought of, or I haven't thought of as well.
Which I look forward to. Yeah. I'm sure he has brilliant technocrats there. So, kaya nga, for me kasi, yun ang tinatanong ng tao, tataas ba yung buwis or hindi? Kasi malapit sa bulsa natin I mean, food security, alam natin, it will take some time before we get agricultural self-sufficiency.
No, but before we go to a possible additional taxes, let's talk about food. Inflation is number one. Doon sa talagang gustong tugunan ng taong bayan, based on the latest Pulse Asia survey, the first was inflation. So, of course, inflation, rising prices of basic goods. How can the president find a way to stop the increase and kind of make it a little bit more affordable, if it's even still affordable to the
And he's the agriculture secretary too, which makes him special, right? So there's going to be short, medium term, long term, right? Long term, I
want to talk about short. Let's
in
talk
6
about
years, of
short.
course, we want to make sure na hindi tayo nag-import ng 84% ng ating rice from Vietnam lang. I mean, like one country is responsible for 84%. That's quite a lot of dependency. In the short run, cushion. So buy fertilizers directly from some of our partners.
Which is Plan?
UAE, Russia, Indonesia, among others. Other measures to make sure na yung reliance natin on Thailand, Vietnam, etc., we can get it at a good price, that the price will not increase. Number 3, ano yung mga subsidies na binibigay mo sa domestic producers to make sure meron tayong backup plan kasi hindi ka rin pwede umasa abroad, di ba? And number 4, if you can give us an update about, siguro the situation is improving in terms of global commodity markets. Perhaps he has information or their government-to-government deals, right, that we don't know much about and that can provide cushion. So the short one is cushion. The medium term is enhancing our food security. Long term is achieving self-sufficiency in the food security front.
With taking on the agriculture portfolio, what has been clear to you with regards to his policies looking into a looming food crisis?
Yes, I think, first of all, the president recognizes yung problema sa Department of Agriculture is not only a technocratic one. I'm sure Secretary Balisacan, who, did PhD on agriculture economics, has a lot of ideas. But you also need political will. Political will in the sense of you're willing to go against intermediaries, predatory intermediaries, against cartels, a lot of people have been taking advantage of the situation. Now, we had problems before when we had quantitative restrictions. We also have some problem now with this no restrictions, this tax tarification law. So the other thing I want to say is, anong gagawin nila sa tax tarification law? Because I think Senator Escudero, even Senator JV, has indicated that if this is hurting our domestic agriculture, maybe amendments ang kailangan. I think Sandra was talking about amendments. Maybe this is where one area we can look at. Benjamin Joko and some technocrats are saying, maybe ang focus now is bring down the prices. So kahit medyo na hurting domestic producers, if you help the consumers, why not? So you clearly see, Pinky, here, you cannot have it both ways. So there are going to be trade-offs here. So I want to see, for instance, ano sasabihin niya sa rice tarification law. Sigurado ako maraming mga magsasaka, milyones na tao na depende sa agriculture sector are going to also watch. Itong rice tarification law, ano mangyari yan? Is he going to go after the cartels? How is he going to do that?
Is it working even? I mean, in terms of what? Taxes derived from the rice tarification law are supposed to help our farmers, and yet the important thing really is to increase yield, higher yield at a low production cost. One last thing you wanted to hear from him before you go.
Well, this is really closest to my heart, West Philippine Sea, right? One of the things I noticed with President Marcos on foreign policy, he's more like his father than President Duterte. He follows what you can call multi-vector foreign policy, right? He wants to keep good relationship with all major powers, not one at the expense of the other. Like one is pro-America, one is pro-China. He's trying to keep it good with all major powers. At the same time, make sure you get benefits from all, but minimum dependence on either of them. And this is relevant to the West Philippine Sea because dun sa West Philippine Sea, unlike President Duterte, he has been strong on the arbitration award. He also has been much warmer to America, right? I won't be surprised next year he'll visit the White House, the first Filipino president in more than a decade. And then at the same time with China, they canceled 3 railway projects or reconsidering that. So a recalibration and reboot is happening on foreign policy. So accusations that he's just another Duterte, China-friendly and all, it's not bearing through. He's more like his father. Because his father, we can say a lot about his domestic policy, but he was very tough on West Philippine Sea. He built one of the first airstrips in the area in 1977, 1978. He kept the Americans. He was friendly to China. He was friendly to the Soviet Union. I see more the father than the previous president. And in a way, that's an improvement to me.
So there's lots to find out. We'll see where the president will really not just center or focus on, but if it's definitely going to be more than an hour, we can expect him touching on a number, not a lot of issues that need to be.
But the tone matters How much emphasis diba? Kasi some he has to say kasi presidente siya, diba? Pero makikita mo saan yung puso niya
Saan yung emphasis?
Yung animated yung face niya. You can see that
Saan yung ipaglalaban niya talaga.
Yung microsignals.
Importante sa kanya. Thank you to our political analyst, Richard Haydarian. Richard, I hope to see you again.
Pleasure, Pinky, as always.
We'll see you soon. Thank you. Now, people are starting to flock at the gathering organized by Marcos supporters near Batasang Pambansa. Our senior correspondent, David Santos, is there to give us more details. So, David, how I understand it, that concert, sila kasi dyan hindi ba pinayagan in the afternoon? Parang 1 p.m. ata or 2 p.m. hanggang after the State of the Nation address of President Marcos?
Base sa information we're getting from the organizers, Pinky, 1 p.m. until 3 to 4 p.m. just before the president will deliver his speech. And they can stay on even after the speech is over because they will be staying here to monitor the speech via the huge TV screens that have been set up in the concert venue. Now, but authorities are saying, at least for this pro-government concert rally, they are not anticipating any serious issues except for the significantly sizable crowd that turned out this afternoon. Ang sabi pa nga nila, there are no specific or credible threats, but of course, they are not taking any chances. The members of the Quezon City Police have been here on standby overnight, and just like in many parts of Quezon City, where there are a lot of restrictions leading to the Batasang Pambansa, it will be tough to get around this part of Quezon City, particularly here in IBP Road. Road closures are being implemented here. We've seen a number of motorists. They've been asking traffic personnel, nagtatanong sila for alternate routes since for some reason.
David? David. Pasensya na, David, we lost you there for a while.
No, as I was saying, Pinky, there are also designated sleeper lanes despite the road closures here in IBC Road. But these sleeper lanes, as you can see from behind me, these are only for vehicles heading towards the House of Representatives. The policemen have also lined up the street to inspect every vehicle that passes through, checking if these vehicles have authorized car passes. All of these measures, Pinky, all these barriers in place to prevent and restrict access to Batasang Pambansa. Now, for other motorists, ang gusto lang natin sabihin, it's best to avoid coming here if you have no business in this area at this time. Now, as far as reopening this part of IBC Road to regular traffic, there's no timeline yet on when or what time this will be happening.
Thanks a lot, David Santos. Economic relief and of human rights violations, fight against corruption and accountability in government are among the demands of protesters this morning in Quezon City. George Cahiles filed this report.
Avenue pushed through with thousands of activists not minding the changing weather. Amid the crisis, protesters are calling for economic relief in the form of government financial aid to vulnerable sectors and the suspension of taxes on oil. They're also calling for job security and minimum wage increase. Activist groups also laid down a 9-point people's agenda for change, which include reviving the agriculture industry and prioritizing food production, prioritizing pro-people economic development through land reform and national industrialization, adopting a clear government policy to fight disinformation, to protect freedom of expression and press freedom, instituting a democratic, ethical, and accountable governance, and providing free healthcare and basic social services for the people.
Kung pagbabatayan natin ang kanyang inaugural speech, ang kanyang appointment sa cabinet, yung 3 weeks na siya ay presidente, wala tayong inaasahang makabuluhan na gagawin niya para magkaroon ng tunay na pagbabago. Hanggang ngayon, wala pa rin tayong Department of Health Secretary. Ang kanyang economic policies represent continuity of the tried and tested anti-people, anti-poor, anti-worker programs. Kaya itong ating siyam na people's agenda, yan po ay hinaharap natin sa publiko para tao mismo ang kikilos para ipaglaban ito.
Protesters peacefully ended their program around 12:30 in the afternoon. George Cahiles, CNN Philippines.
And we'll have more on the upcoming SONA of President Marcos after a quick break. Stay tuned to CNN Philippines.
Dangerous out there. Buti na lang there's locally superfoods with 3 kinds of fruits that are super in many ways. First, there's our dragon fruit drink na mayaman sa prebiotics that aid digestion. Second, there's our passion fruit drink with no added sugar and high in vitamin C. Lastly, we have our mangosteen drink, good for your heart. All superfoods contain more antioxidants than your average fruit to help protect your immune system. Superfruit for super you.
Ano ang sikreto para special ang umaga? Dairy Cream. Mas malinamnam. Mas katakam-takam. At mas special ang bawat kagat. Dairy Cream. Pinipili ng mapiling ina.
Regent Mochi, your locally produced glutinous rice cake, comes in mango, green tea, ube, and assorted flavored packs. Regent Mochi Japanese-style glutinous rice cake by Regent.
Gintong dagat ang pagitan, San Miguel, Pilsen ang nasa pagitan, laging nasa pagitan na San Miguel, Pilsen, sarap laging kasama.
us to be able to move forward, infrastructure development should be a focus of any economic development program in the country in the next few years.
The objective is to improve transportation, mobility, and accessibility in our cities by seamlessly connecting or linking up all our road and rail networks, airports, and seaports. With this, we can decongest Metro Manila, accelerate and make more efficient the transportation of people and goods, improve access between cities and provinces, develop new economic growth centers, boost our local industries, enable tourism, create more jobs and business and livelihood opportunities, and allow everyone to have a better quality of life.
In 30 minutes, President Bongbong Marcos will deliver his first State of the Nation address. We'll bring you that to you live here on CNN Philippines. And as we're seeing right now, of course, I'm joined by our chief correspondent, Pia Hontiveros at the Batasang Pambansa. We're going to talk about this, Pia. I'm assuming you have a monitor there as well? All right, so...
well, actually, Pinky, even if I don't have a monitor, the north wing is just very, very near... No. It's just very, very near the helipad, so I can see the choppers.
It's perfect.
Right there,
Okay.
right outside the building. So one of those 4 choppers is carrying President Marcos, and as we did say, that he is going to be arriving by chopper, and that's been going on for the last 10, 15, 20 years. You know, a long time ago, the president, the incumbent, the chief executive, used to arrive here by car.
Right.
But as the
Pia?
years went along, ang daming gusto mag-rally.
Oh, that's right.
Anti-administration, no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Pia,
but anyway, okay.
I'm seeing a video right now bago
Alright.
dumating
So
sa'yo.
President Marcos is going... Yes, we can see it. Pinky, we can see it. I can see it. It's on air. We can see President Marcos arriving. He's going to be met by the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, General Andres Centino. That is General Andy Centino beside him. This is the honor guard that the President is being escorted through. At the end of that honor guard formation, and you're going to see them in just a bit, will be the Senate President, Juan Miguel Zubiri, and the Speaker of the House, Martin Romualdez. Martin Romualdez, of course, is the first cousin of the president on his mother's side, Imelda. There, you can see that shot of them being greeted by Mig Zubiri and Martin Romualdez. Of course, what's going to happen here, just a few pleasantries. The president being met by the leadership of both the Senate and the House. Don't forget, the president was also once a congressman in the 1990s and 2000s. And this is a very familiar territory to him. So while this is going on, this is the rear entrance. No, while this is going on, the president is going to be. They're going to turn right, actually our left. No, they're going to turn right at this point, and they're going to bring him to a holding room where he will stay for a few moments because he's going to be brought to the session hall shortly, like about 5 minutes before 4 in the afternoon. Because we all know that 4 o'clock in the afternoon is the appointed time. That is prescribed by the Constitution, and that is because the Constitution says the President should address Congress at the opening of its first regular session on the 4th Monday of July, and 4 o'clock is the appointed time. So it is now, if my clock is correct, it is 3:36 in the afternoon. So it is 24 minutes before the appointed hour, before 4 o'clock in the afternoon, before this very, very first State of the Nation address of President Marcos. Now, when he is brought to the session hall, at that point in time, Mig Zubiri as Senate President and Martin Romualdez as Speaker of the House will convene that this joint session of Congress with a bang of the gables and the placement of the maces, the MACE, the maces of both the Senate and the House. Now, the mace is the symbols of authority for both the Senate and the House, and that is what will signify that that Congress is already in session. Now, when that happens, that is when of course, and we all know already. It's actually a really very simple program. The national anthem, the invocation, and the national anthem, by the way, will be sung by a children's choir, a high school children's choir from Ilocos Norte, the president's hometown. After the invocation, the president's introduced. He delivers his SONA, and then that's it. Now, earlier, si Mig Zabiri was explaining to us na ang balita niya is that the president wanted to talk for 4 hours, and he was just convinced na no, Mr. President, you can't talk for 4 hours, And ang salitang ginamit ni Migs kanina, people would just get bored, So he was convinced, according to Migs and according to his sources of information, to whittle it down. We're not sure if it's going to be like an hour or an hour and a half. Now, just a little bit of more of a background about Bongbong Marcos. He, like I said earlier, he was congressman of the 2nd District of Ilocos Norte, the same district where his son, Sandro, now serves, and I spoke to Sandro earlier. He was congressman of the 2nd District from 1992 to 95. He served 1 term. This was after meaning the family, returned from exile. Remember, they were in exile in Hawaii. His father was removed from power, was ousted from power because of that 1986 EDSA People Power Revolt. Now, 1992 to 95, like I was saying, he spent 1 term here, 3 years here in this same House of Representatives as congressman. And then he served as governor of Ilocos Norte for 3 terms from 1998 to 2007. Tapos bumalik siya sa Congress dito from 2007 to 2010 for 1 term. And then he ran for the Senate in 2010. He served for 1 term until 2016. Everybody remembers, in 2016, he ran for vice president. In that election, he lost by about 200,000 votes to Vice President Leni Robredo. And at that time, Marcos did claim that he was cheated, and which is why he filed an electoral protest before the Presidential Electoral Tribunal. Of course, that did not prosper, and then he ran for president for the 2022 elections, and he won. This is going to be his first SONA. This is a new president who's coming off an election. If you look at those numbers very quickly of that election, there were 55.5 million Filipinos who voted. Of that 55.5 million voters, BBM got 60% of that vote. 31.6 million vote. It is the third biggest electoral mandate in Philippine history. Let's go even deeper into those numbers. Yung 55.5 million na bumoto, that is representative of an 83% turnout because ang total number ng registered voters natin, yung mga rehistradong botante, is 67.4 million. 55.5 million ang bumoto. Nung 55.5 million na yon, yung 60%, yung 31.6 million, yun ang bumoto kay BBM. Now, yung 60% na sinasabi ng 31.6 million votes, it reflects what was seen in the surveys noong January. Ang sabi ng Pulse Asia, they put BBM at 60%. In February, 55%. Itong Abril, about a month before the elections, the Lilo survey put him at 64%. Now, everybody remembers what kind of an election it was, and I'm sure people remember there was this attempt to unify 4 candidates, Leni, Robredo, Isko Moreno, Manny Pacquiao, and Ping Lacson, to get them to unite so that there could only be one common candidate among the 4 of them to run against BBM. That, of course, never happened. And the rest, like we always like to say, is history. It's a repeat of what happened in 2016 when Rodrigo Duterte ran and it was obvious that he was going to win. At the last minute, President Noynoy Aquino himself told me in that exclusive interview on the Friday before the election that he was trying to unite Grace Poe, Mar Rojas, and Jojo Binay so that one of them could go up against Duterte. Ang ending ng election na yon, Rodrigo Duterte won 39% of the vote, 16.6 million votes. Now, a little bit while President Marcos, and talagang kailangan talaga masanay tayo, no? President Marcos, from 1986 to 2022, that pendulum swing na pinag-usapan natin, wild pendulum swing, a 180-degree turnaround. We have a President Marcos at this point in time. By the way, that's Irene, the President's younger sister, speaking to VP Sara Duterte. Now, President Marcos, of course, he's speaking in this building that was built by his father. Okay, but before we go into that, earlier, last week, Cian Arcangel, our reporter, was reporting that this building was refurbished to the tune of about 100 million pesos because kailangan baguhin yung floor ng plenary hall dahil hindi naman talaga maayos, But very few remember that 20 years ago, in 2002, the session hall was spruced up, but only to the tune of about 7.5 million pesos. 4 million for the leaking ceiling. Yes, yung mga kisame medyo tumutulo na by that time. 3.5 million for the flooring. I remember the flooring. I remember the carpet because I used to cover here, the House of Representatives in the 1990s, and that old royal blue carpet was replaced. And under it was when they tore it out, under it was 1 inch thick blanket of dust. Now, another little bit of history, about this Batasang Pambansa building before we talk about when it was built and why. In 2008, November 2008, so about 14 years ago, there was a bombing that happened here. In the south wing entrance. Itong kung saan ako ngayon, north wing ito. South wing yung isang entrance, Doon nagkaroon ng bombing. And the target then was Basilan Congressman Wahab Akbar. Now, very quickly again, I just wanted to explain why we call this Congress the 19th Congress. Now, while we're waiting for BBM, it's 3:43 in the afternoon, by the way, so we have about 17 minutes to go before the SONA is delivered. The first Congress is the Congress that was elected or in existence from 1946 to 1949. So, of course, 1946 is the year after World War II ended, when we declared independence, so-called, from the United States, when the Republic of the Philippines was inaugurated in 1946. Now, the 7th Congress was elected in 1970 and was supposed to end in 1973. And what happened in 1972? A little bit of history. Let's remember, martial law was declared. Congress was padlocked. The President's father himself declared martial law. That Congress, the 7th Congress, was replaced by the interim Batasang Pambansa from 1978 to 1984 and the regular Batasang Pambansa from 1984 to 1986. And that is the reason why this building stands today, because this was built to house the interim Batasang Pambansa from 1974 onwards. What happened in 86? Kasi nga, sabi ko, hanggang 86 lang yung regular Batasang Pambansa, the EDSA People Power Revolt. So, remember the 7th Congress from 1970 to 1972. So let's take up from where we left off. So when democracy was restored, the bicameral Congress was restored. Yung na-restore na bicameral Congress, yun na ang tinawag na 8th Congress. So bilangin nyo, 8th Congress, 1987 to 1992, and so on down the line. Nandito na tayo ngayon sa 19th Congress, which will be in existence from 2022 to 2025. Right now, I don't know if you can see it. So right now, what you see is the plenary hall, but we do have some video of what's going on inside the holding room, some pleasantries, some picture taking. Mig Zubiri and Martin Romualdez having their photographs taken with the president. Everybody seems to be in a very good mood. Well, who wouldn't be in a good mood? Because you have a supermajority. Because in the past, after every election, there is always what we call an exodus, to the party of the newly elected president. So in the past, 2016, lahat pumunta sa PDP laban dahil partido ni Rodrigo Duterte. Noong 2010, lahat pumunta sa Liberal Party dahil partido ni Pinoy, so on and so forth. Pero itong, the point here is that this political exodus rivals only the exodus that takes place during Holy Week, I suppose, when people leave Metro Manila for days. But like I said earlier, who needs a political exodus when you can have a supermajority? Kanina, kinakausap ko si Mig Zubiri. We were talking about how tiny the minority is in the Senate and how tiny it is also going to be in the House of Representatives. supermajority in both houses of Congress. Now, also just very briefly, for about a minute, I want to talk about the weather. Why is it that important? Because, there are only certain places of the Batasan that are really fully air-conditioned. And this north wing entrance, the south wing, medyo hindi masyadong air-conditioned. Napakainit talaga. Talagang lahat kami dito, pawis na pawis. Medyo malamig dahil sa mga electric fan, etc. But we were told that, and it did rain a while ago. There was a 60 to 70% chance of rain. Temperatures still hit about 31 to 32 degrees Celsius. But, this isn't exactly, like I said, a weather report. But it's strange, because every sauna, it gets hotter and hotter. I've been here every sauna for, I don't know for how long already. And I'm sure it's not the politics. I'm sure it's climate change, which, by the way, many have argued should be on every nation's political agenda. So what is going on right now is the president's family, the first family, the first lady, his wife, Liza Araneta, and their two sons, Vinny and Simon, because Sandro, of course, as a congressman of Ilocos Norte, 2nd District, is already inside the plenary hall. The first family is going to be led to the plenary hall, so that's where they're going to wait for President Marcos. It is 3:47, 30 minutes before, like we always say, the appointed hour before Bongbong Marcos delivers his very first State of the Nation address in this building, like we said, which was built by his father to house the interim and the regular Batasang Pambansa. It is a full house, as you can see. This is the first time in 2 years, we are still in pandemic times, the first time in 2 years that we have a full house in the Batasang Pambansa for a State of the Nation address. And remember very clearly, 2020, nandun kami sa isang satellite studio sa Panay. Hindi na kami pinapunta dito, pero every SONA, every fourth Monday of July of every year when Congress opens its first regular session, talagang ganito ang eksena dito sa Batasang Pambansa. Now, President Marcos is just being given a little tour. It's just being shown a few things, a few mementos, I suppose, of today's very first SONA for him. All right, what is a SONA? The State of the Nation address, of course, like we said, it is a constitutional duty of the President to report to Congress. It sets vision and direction for the nation. It is like John Nery, newspaper columnist, describes political theater. So it's performance, it is projection. It puts the wind in the nation's sails. It's meant to tell us where the President wants to take us. And sometimes the speech is delivered with soaring rhetoric, and it should be anyway. Catchy phrases, human props. Why do I say human props? Back in 2001, Gloria Arroyo, former president, had those Bangkang Papel boys. Do you remember them? The three young boys, who were from Payatas, and she presented them. Yun ang tawag doon, human props, or in political speech parlance, it's like the Lenny Skutnik, and by the way, speaking of Gloria Arroyo, she did announce that she wouldn't be able to attend today's SONA because she tested positive for COVID. At this moment, I haven't seen if former President Joseph Estrada is here, or even President Fidel Ramos, but okay, so they're not here. But usually the former presidents are invited. President Duterte, no word, no sighting of him either. Neither is former Vice President Leni Robredo here. Although it is customary to invite them, but they do have that option to attend or not. However, there are times na wala yung dating Pangulo. Halimbawa, kung medyo may sakit, or the incumbent at yung dating Pangulo don't see eye to eye, or halimbawa nung panahon ni Gloria Arroyo, nung siya ang Pangulo, nakakulong si Erap, noong panahon naman ni Pinoy, ni President Aquino, nakakulong naman si Gloria, so hindi nakaka-attend ng SONA. At alam naman natin yung mga dahilan kung bakit nakulungan sila. So it is 10 minutes before the hour of 4, and you can see in the plenary hall Vice President Sara Duterte there seated beside Liza Araneta Marcos and Irene Marcos Araneta, the President's younger sister. Up on the podium sa rostrum are Mig Zubiri, Senate President, and Martin Romualdez, who is Speaker of the House of Representatives. Now, in the late 50s to the early 60s, there was a Romualdez also was Speaker, Daniel Romualdez, who was the uncle of Imelda at that time. Live picture still. For those of you just joining us, it is President Marcos's first State of the Nation address. You can see the clock that's ticking down to the last second. 9 minutes and 12, 11, 10 seconds to go before he delivers his very first State of the Nation address. This is, like I said, a full house. This is a newly refurbished Batasang Pambansa. To the tune of, as we said earlier already, 100 million pesos. This is a, if it was built in 78, 88, 98, 08, 18, 44-year-old building already. In a moment, in about 8 minutes, we're going to see President Marcos being led from the holding room to the plenary hall, and then we're going to see the beginning of the program of the SONA. There's a little bit of a documentary that's going on right now. I think it's from RTVM or PTV4. But we're just reviewing the video of the arrival via chopper of President Marcos. All right, still you're seeing some earlier pictures of Martin Romualdez, Speaker of the House, first cousin of the President on his mother's side, and Mig Zubiri, Senate President, escorting President Marcos to the holding room.
What you and government can achieve together. Our future we decide today. Yesterday cannot make that decision anymore.
All right, it is 3:53 in the afternoon, and everybody is waiting. All eyes, literally all eyes, here on the Batasan, in the Batasan. Now, earlier I was saying that if the forces that unseated his father in 1986 and campaigned against him very vigorously in these last elections couldn't believe the day, that night of May 25, that he was proclaimed by a joint session of Congress as the winner of the presidential elections in this very same building, that was May 25. And also, if they can't believe that day of his inaugural on June 30th, well, they're not going to believe this day either, because a new President Marcos is delivering a SONA in this building that his father built to house the interim and regular Batasang Pambansa in the late 70s. And that was meant to replace a Congress that was padlocked and dissolved by martial law. But that is exactly what is happening today. Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr., Bongbong Marcos, is delivering his first State of the Nation address, emerging from this holding room where he was brought to for about 10 minutes. He's walking now to the plenary hall, and this is like, like a lot of people have said that the presidency is destiny. This is destiny, I suppose. He's walking into the plenary hall as President of the Philippines, and he's about to deliver his very first State of the Nation address. It looks like, all right, I'm trying to figure out if they're going to bring him around so that he can enter the plenary hall from the main entrance, so that he gets to walk through the aisle, so that the senators and congressmen can greet him. Bongbong Marcos is the 17th president of the 5th. Hold on a moment. He is the 17th president, but the 7th president of the 5th Republic that came into being when the 1987 Constitution was ratified. He's taking a little bit of his time to look at some LED displays of a little bit of history. The president also is the third child of a president to become president in his or her own right. The first was Gloria Arroyo, whom we mentioned earlier. She was the daughter of Diosdado Macapagal, president from 1961 to 1965. The second was Noynoy Aquino, son of Cory Aquino, president from 1986 to 1992. Bongbong Marcos is the 11th senator to become president. He is the 11th to have served as congressman. He's the second president from Ilocos Norte, the first, of course, being his father. The 11th president to be proclaimed by a legislature, and the 7th president to be elected to a single 6-year term. It is a provision expressly placed in the 1987 Constitution to guard against another dictatorship, not unless a congressman has his way. Congressman Aurelio Gonzalez of Pampanga filed a resolution seeking a second term for a president. One term is 5 years, the second term 5 years, meaning re-election. Let's listen in now, President Marcos entering the plenary hall.
Marcos Jr.
On the part of the Senate, the joint session is called to order. On the part of the House of Representatives, the joint session is called to order. Please rise for the singing of the Philippine National Anthem, to be led by the Samiwang Singers of Ilocos Norte.
Bayang magiliw, peros ng silang manay, alam ng puso, sa titim mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, gulat ka ng magiging, sa manlulupi, di ka pasisigil, sa dagat at bundok, sa simula, sa langit mong bakaw, may ilagang pula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kisap ng watawat mo'y tamo ay nanagniningning. Ang bituin at araw ng kailan, pang may di magdidilim. Lupa ng araw na alay, ating pagsinta, buhay ay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na pa, may mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Please remain standing for the nation's prayer.
Aming manlilikha, tagapagbigay buhay at liwanag ng sangkatauhan. Salamat po sa iyong pagtangkilig at paggabay sa bansang Pilipinas. Salamat po sa kalayaang magtipon tulad ngayon ayon sa talaga ng aming saligang batas.
Salamat po na kami dahil sa kabayanihan, pagsisikap at sakripisyo ng aming mga ninuno at mga bayani ay nabuo upang maging isang bansa at isang malayang demokratikong republika. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin.
Pagpalain niyo po ang aming pagtitipon ngayon upang aming dinggin, liwanagan at suriin ang kalagayan ng bayan, ang state of the nation. At upang italaga sa inyong gabay at tangkilik ang mga magiging hakbangin ng pamahalaan sa pangunguna ng aming Pangulo, Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr.
Biyayaan niyo po kami, mga mamamayan at mga namumuno, ng patuloy at tumitibay na pagkakaisa, pagtutulungan at pagmamahalan bilang pagsunod sa inyong mabuti at magandang kalooban.
Kasihan niyo po ang aming Pangulo at ang pangkat ng kanyang mga tagapangasiwa, ang aming mga mambabatas, ang aming mga hukom, at ang mga tagapagpairal ng katarungan, ng dalisay at ibayong kaliwanagan, karunungan, katuwiran, at katapatan sa kanilang banal na tungkulin.
Patuloy niyo kaming turuan
at atahayin kaming lahat na mga mamamayan at mga pinuno tungo sa dakilang pagkakaisa na magbubunga ng ibayong kapayapaan, kaayusan, kaunlaran, kasaganaan, at kasiyahan ng lipunang Pilipino.
Magpatuloy po tayo sa personal na panalangin. Mangyaring ang bawat isa ay tahimik na manawagan sa may kapal.
Ladies and gentlemen, honorable members of the Congress of the Philippines, His Excellency Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr., President of the Republic of the Philippines.
Vice President Sara Zimmerman Duterte, former Presidents Joseph Ejercito Estrada, Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, and Rodrigo Roa Duterte, Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri, and the honorable members of the Senate, House Speaker Ferdinand Martin Romualdez, and the honorable members of the House of Representatives, Chief Justice Alexander Gesmundo, and the honorable justices of the Supreme Court, the Apostolic Nuncio, Most Reverend Charles John Brown, and the esteemed members of the Diplomatic Corps, the honorable members of the Cabinet, our First Lady, Luis Araneta Marcos, and our children, distinguished guests, ang mga minamahal kong mga kababayan, ladies and gentlemen, magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. I come before you today to address you as it is my duty as President of the Republic. We live in difficult times brought about by some forces of our own making, but certainly also by forces that are beyond our control. But we have, and we will continue to find solutions, and these are some of them. In terms of the economy, we will implement a sound fiscal management. Tax administration reforms will be in place to increase revenue collection. Expenditure priorities will be realigned and spending efficiency will be improved to immediately address the economic scarring arising from the effects of COVID-19 and also to prepare for future shocks. Productivity-enhancing investments will be promoted. Our country must become an investment destination, capitalizing on the corporate recovery and tax incentives for enterprises or the CREATE law, and the economic liberalization laws such as the Public Service Act and the Foreign Investments Act. Ecozones will be fully supported to bring in strategic industries such as those engaged in high-tech manufacturing, health and medical care, and all emerging technologies. This is also seen to facilitate economic growth outside of Metro Manila. Our tax system will be adjusted in order to catch up with the rapid developments of the digital economy, including the imposition of value-added tax on digital service providers. The initial revenue impact will be around 11.7 billion pesos in 2023 alone. Tax compliance procedures will be simplified to promote ease of paying taxes. We will pursue measures to determine possible undervaluation and/or trade misinvoicing of imported goods. Through information and communications technology, the Bureau of Customs will promote streamlined processes. Disbursements for 2022 to 2023 will be maintained at above 20% of gross domestic product, or 4.955 trillion pesos and 5.086 trillion pesos respectively, to ensure continuous implementation of priority programs. Disbursement will further increase over the medium term from 5.402 trillion pesos, or 20.7% of our GDP in 2024, to 7.712 trillion pesos, or 20.6% of GDP in 2028. The medium-term fiscal strategy of this administration seeks to attain short-term macro-fiscal stability while remaining supportive of the country's economic recovery and to promote medium-term fiscal sustainability. Furthermore, and more importantly, fiscal policy aims to bring together the national government's resources so that these are mobilized and utilized in order to gain the maximum benefit and the high multiplier effects for our economy. Measurable medium-term macroeconomic and fiscal objectives include the following headline numbers. These are based on forecasts that are consistent with the guiding principles of coherence of strategies, policy discipline, and fiscal sustainability. 6.5 to 7.5% real gross domestic product growth in 2022. 6.5 to 8% real GDP growth annually between 2023 and 2028. 9% or single-digit poverty rate by 2028. 3% national government deficit to GDP ratio by 2028, less than 60% national government debt to GDP ratio by 2025. At least $4,256 income per capita and the attainment of upper middle income status by 2024. The aforementioned headline goals summarize the objectives of this medium-term fiscal strategy being submitted to Congress for its adoption and concurrence to the concurrent resolution by the Senate and House of Representatives. Once adopted, the MTFF will become an anchor for the annual spending and financing plan of the national government and Congress when preparing the annual budget and undertaking related appropriation activities. It is therefore a forward-looking document that extends beyond the traditional 3-year horizon to reach 6 years, coinciding with the 6-year coverage of the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028. The MTFF also promotes transparency and credible commitment to pursue the indicated socio-macroeconomic goals that optimize the government budget. Medium-term growth targets and the assumptions regarding key macroeconomic variables underpin the medium-term fiscal plan. The recent past and the COVID-19 pandemic has beset the macroeconomic environment with challenges and a series of external shocks. Inflation has accelerated in recent months due largely to significant increases in international prices of oil and other key commodities. Still, the economic growth momentum remains firm, as demonstrated by the strong 2022 first quarter GDP growth at 8.3%. However, the recovery process from the impact of the pandemic is still ongoing, amid elevated uncertainty in the international economic environment. Revisions in the macroeconomic assumptions incorporate these challenges and most recent economic developments leading to upward adjustments in the following: inflation rate for 2022 to 2023, foreign exchange rate for 2023 to 2025, and goods and services imports growth for 2022. The economy is expected to grow by 6.5 to 7.5% this year as we continue to reopen the economy while considering the recent external developments. In the first quarter alone, GDP saw an increase in household consumption and private investments, along with a robust manufacturing industry, high vaccination rate, improved healthcare capacity, and an upward trend in tourism and employment. This is expected to continue for the rest of the year. The strong economic growth is projected to be sustained and expanded further to 6.5 to 8% from 2023 until 2028. The average inflation for 2022 is projected to range from 4.5 to 5.5%. Following the uptick in fuel and food prices as a result of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict and the disrupted supply chains. It is slightly adjusted to 2.5 to 4.5% in 2023 and is seen to return to the target range of 2.0 to 4.0% by 2024 until 2028. Dubai crude oil price is expected to settle at 90 to 110 US dollars per barrel in 2022, 80 to 100 US dollars per barrel in 2023, and 70 to 90 US dollars per barrel from 2024 onwards, as oil supply is expected to catch up and stabilize over the medium term. The Philippine peso is projected to average between 51 to 53 pesos per US dollar in 2022 and 51 to 55 pesos per US dollar from 2023 onwards due to aggressive monetary policy tightening by the US Federal Reserve, market aversion amid the Russian-Ukraine conflict, and again, increased global oil prices. Lastly, exports of goods are expected to grow by 7% in 2022 and 6% from 2023 to 2028. On the other hand, imports of goods are projected to grow by 18% in 2022, 6% in 2023, and 8% from 2024 to 2028. I have instructed the NEDA to coordinate with other agencies and work on the Philippine Development Plan for 2023 to 28 and to submit to me the complete blueprint and progress of its implementation not later than year-end. One of the main drivers of our push for growth and employment will be in the agricultural sector. With regard to food supply, we are confronted by a two-pronged problem, that which will hit us in the short term and that which will hit us in the long term. Tayo ay nahaharap sa mga problemang kagyat nating mararamdaman at mga hamong pangmatagalan. Ang mga suliraning agarang mararamdaman ng ating mga kababayan ay ang posibilidad ng tuloy-tuloy na pagsipa ng presyo ng pagkain at kakulangan sa supply ng ating pagkain. Upang masuportahan ang mabimili para mapanatili ang kanilang purchasing power o kapangyarihan sa pagbili, isinapinal ng Department of Agriculture ang planong taasan ang produksyon sa susunod na panahon ng pagtanim o planting season sa pamamagitan ng tulong pinansyal at teknikal. Magbibigay tayo ng pautang habang mas ilalapit natin sa sektor ng agrikultura ang hindi gaanong mahal na farm inputs na bibilhin na ng bulto ng gobyerno. Kabilang dito ang abono, pestisidyo, mga punla, feeds, fuel subsidy at ayuda para sa mga karapat-dapat na benepisyaryo. Para sa pangmatagalang solusyon, itataas natin ang produksyon ng mga kalakal at produktong pang-agrikultura. At para magawa ito, pagtitibayin natin ang tinatawag na value chain na nagsisimula sa mga magsasaka hanggang sa mga namimili. May mga bahagi ng value chain na sa ngayon ay kanya-kanya ang operasyon. Pagtibayin natin ang koordinasyon ng iba't ibang bahagi nito. Ang pagsasaliksik para sa mga makabagong paraan at ng pagtatanim at pag-aalaga ng hayop ay masusing gagabayan ng Department of Agriculture. Ang produksyon ng farm inputs o mga kakailanganin ng mga magsasaka sa pagpapalago ng kanilang sakahan ay ating iaayon sa mga hamong dala ng climate change at global warming. Mahigpit na pagsusuri ang gagawin ng ating mga eksperto tungo dito. Ang mga pautang at financial assistance sa mga magbubukid at mangingisda ay magiging institusyon at patakaran ng aking administrasyon. Ipapaprioridad natin ang modernisasyon ng mga sakahan sa pamamagitan ng mga makabagong teknolohiya para sa ating mga magsasaka. Atin palalawakin ang mga palaisdaan, babuyan at manukan. Lahat ng ito gagamitan ng siyensya para tumaas ang produksyong agrikultural. Maging ang post-production at processing ay susuportahan ng pamahalaan. Gagawa tayo ng national network ng farm-to-market road upang mas mabilis na mailakbay ng mga magsasaka ang kanilang mga produkto sa mga pamilihan. At gagawa tayo ng mga paraan upang maramdaman ng mga mamimili ang pagluluwag ng presyo ng mga produktong pagkain sa kayang halaga, gaya ng muling pagbubuhay ng mga Kadiwa Center. Hindi ito magagawa sa isang araw. Hindi magagawa sa isang buwan o isang taon lamang. Ngunit, kailangan na natin simulaan ngayon. Ang Agrarian Reform Program ay dapat magpatuloy. Agrarian reform is not only about acquisition, but also about support services and distribution. To assist this, I intend to issue an executive order to impose a one-year moratorium on the payment of land amortization and interest payments. This is included in Republic Act number 11469 or the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act. A moratorium will give the farmers the ability to channel the resources in developing their farms, maximizing their capacity to produce and propel the growth of our economy. Civil society organizations also support this because it will unburden the farmers of their dues and be able to focus on improving farm productivity. Congress must also pass a law that will emancipate the agrarian reform beneficiaries from the agrarian reform debt burden, thereby amending Section 26 of Republic Act 6657. In this law, the loans of agrarian reform beneficiaries with unpaid amortization and interest shall be condoned. Layunin ng batas na ito ay burahin ang hindi mabayarang utang ng ating mga magsasaka na benepisyaryo ng agrarian reform. Agrarian reform beneficiaries who are still to receive their awarded land under the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program shall receive it without any obligation to pay any amortization. The condonation of the existing agrarian reform loan will cover the amount of 58.125 billion pesos, benefiting 654,000 agrarian reform beneficiaries and involving a total of 1.18 million hectares of awarded lands. Executive Order number 75, Series 2019 requires that all government, agencies, bureaus, departments, and instrumentalities to turn over agricultural lands to qualified agrarian reform beneficiaries. At present, we have a total of 52,000 hectares of unused agricultural lands of the government, which shall now be used for distribution to the following sectors in accordance with Section 40 of the Republic Act number 6657 as amended. Thus, landless war veterans, landless surviving spouse and orphans of war veterans, landless retirees of the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police. Agricultural lands acquired under this program will be given to graduates of college degrees in agriculture who are landless. The call of the times is for the infusion of fresh and new blood in the agricultural sector. We need a new breed of farmers equipped with modern agricultural technology able to engage in sustained scientific farming that will not only increase farm yields, but also resilience in the face of climate change. They say that each brand has a story. As for the Filipino brand, ours is deeply rooted in our rich cultural heritage, and the tourism sector plays an invaluable role in the promotion of the Filipino brand. Tourism is not only an important economic development tool, but the abundance of opportunities that the sector creates in terms of regular employment and even job creation at the grassroots level is undeniable. To boost our tourism industry, we will first and foremost make basic developments, such as road improvements for easier access to tourism spots. We will also upgrade our airports and create more international airports to help decongest the bottleneck in the Manila airport. We will also make it more convenient for travelers to go around the country, even to remote areas, to help promote undiscovered tourist spots. This program will be led by the Department of Tourism together with the Department of Public Works and Highways. To foster the Filipino brand is to spark our sense of pride and reaffirm our strong sense of identity. It is time to welcome the rest of the world with an enhanced Filipino brand that is unique attractive, and creative. The creativity of the Filipino is truly world-class. We excel in arts and culture, new media, live events, avenues which generate primary and downstream jobs for our creative and talented countrymen. Unfortunately, ang mga hanap buhay na ito ang unang pinadapa ng pandemya at ang pinakahuli namang makabalik sa normal. The creative industry likewise faces many challenges, including workplace conditions, working hours, intellectual property rights, and the welfare of our beloved freelancers who were left vulnerable during the height of the pandemic. We require an institutionalized creative industry that will advance the interest of its stakeholders. Sila na nagbibigay ng kaluluwa at pagkakilala sa ating pagka-Pilipino. Protektahan natin sila. The Department of Social Welfare and Development has a large part to play in all of this. Magpapatuloy ang ating pagkalinga sa ating mga kababayan na lubos na nangangailangan. Hindi po natin sila pababayaan. Mangunguna sa pag-aagapay sa kanila ang Department of Social Welfare and Development. Utos ko sa DSWD ang mabilis na pagtugon sa pangangailangan ng mga biktima ng kalamidad at mga iba't ibang krisis. Ang mga field office nila ay inatasan na maagang maglagak ng family food packs at non-food essentials sa mga LGU, bago pa man manalasa ang anumang kalamidad. Magdadagdag tayo ng mga operation center, warehouse at imbakan ng relief goods, lalo na sa mga malalayong lugar na mahirap marating. Titiyakin natin na maayos ang koordinasyon ng DSWD at Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development nang sa ganun, madali ang pagpatupad ng Emergency Shelter Assistance Program para sa mga biktima ng kahit anong kalamidad. Pagtitibayin pa natin ang komprehensibong programang Assistance to Individuals in Crisis Situations o ang ating tinatawag na AICS para maiparating ang tulong sa mas maraming biktima. Hindi natin papahirapan ang mga biktima ng krisis na dudulog sa ahensya. Gagawin nating simple ang proseso ng paghingi at pagparating ng tulong. Dahil hindi naman dapat dinadagdagan pa ang hirap ng nararanasan ng ating mga mamamayan. Upang matiyak na mapupunta sa kwalipikadong mga pamilya ang tulong na pamahalaan sa pamamagitan na 4Ps o Pantawid Pamilya Pilipino Program, titiyakin natin na malilinis ang listahan ng benepisyaryo. Higit na sa 1 milyong pangalan na ang nakapag-graduate na sa listahan. At nagagalak akong mabatid na sila ay nakakatayo na sa kanilang sariling paa. Kaugnay nito ay inutusan ko ang DSWD na pag-ibayuhin pa ang pagrepaso ng listahan upang maitutok ang pamimigay ng sapat na ayuda sa mga lubos na nangangailangang pamilya. Magpapatuloy ang supplemental feeding program para sa mga bata sa child development centers at supervised neighborhood play at lalo pa nating palalawakin sa taong 2023. Hindi rin natin nakakalimutan ang mga solo parents at mga nanay na nahiwalay sa kanilang mga mister dahil sa karahasan. Pagtitibayin natin ang programa sa violence against women and their children. Kabilang na ang counseling para sa mga biktima, katuwang ang ating mga LGU. Tiyakin natin na sapat ang pondo sa halos 70 residential care centers at 7 non-residential care centers para sa vulnerable sectors at persons with disabilities na sumisilong dito. Sa ating sitwasyon ng pangkalusugan, nariyan pa rin ang banta ng COVID-19. lalo't may mga nadidiscovering bagong variant ng coronavirus. Pero hindi na natin kakayanin ang isa pang lockdown. Wala na tayong gagawing lockdown. Dapat natin balansehin ng maayos ang kalusugan at kapakanan ng ating mga mamamayan sa isang banda at ang ekonomiya naman sa kabilang banda. Nakikipagtulungan ang iba't ibang ahensya ng pamahalaan sa pag-monitor sa mga COVID-19 hospital admission upang makatiyak tayo na may sapat na kapasidad ang ating healthcare system at maiwasan ang pagsipa ng bilang ng nagkakasakit. Patuloy din ang ating vaccine booster rollout para sa ating pangkalahatang depensa. Sa ganitong paraan, kahit pa tumaas muli ang bilang ng mga COVID cases, mananatiling mababa ang bilang ng mga maospital at bilang ng mga namamatay. Sa pamamagitan nito, unti-unti rin tayong masasanay na nariyan ang virus pero hindi na seryoso ang banta sa ating buhay. Iaayon natin ang ating mga health protocols sa kung ano ang ating pangangailangan sa paglipas ng panahon at lalo pang iibayuhin ang kooperasyon kasama ang pribadong sektor upang tumaas pa ang kumpiyansa ng mga mamumunuhan nang sa gayon ay bumalik na tayo sa full capacity, lalo-lalo na ang ating mga negosyo. Pagbubutihan pa natin ang pagpapakalat ng tamang impormasyon ukol sa COVID, kasama ang kahalagahan ng bakuna. Mananatili muna sa ngayon ang alert level system natin. Pinapag-aralan natin ang ibang paraan ng klasifikasyon upang mas babagay sa kasalukuyang sitwasyon, lalong-lalo na sa pagbabago ng COVID. Sa pakikipagtulungan ng Kongreso, itatatag natin ang ating sariling Center for Disease Control and Prevention at ang isang Vaccine Institute. Magtatayo tayo ng dagdag na mga health center at ospital. But beyond the issues that the pandemic has brought, the need for a stronger healthcare system is self-evident. We must bring services, medical services to the people and not wait for them to come to our hospitals and healthcare centers. Napakinabangan natin ng husto ang malalaking specialty hospital gaya ng Heart Center, Lung Center, Children's Hospital at National Kidney and Transplant Institute. Kaya maliwanag na hindi lang dapat dito sa National Capital Region kundi maging sa ibang parte ng bansa. Maliwanag na hindi lamang dapat dito lamang sa National Capital Region kundi maging sa ibang parte ng bansa, kailangan magdagdag ng ganitong uri ng mga pagamutan. Bukod dito, upang mailapit natin ang healthcare system sa taong bayan, nang hindi sila kailangang pumunta sa sentro ng kanilang bayan, lalawigan o region, ay maglalagay tayo ng mga clinic, mga RHU, na pupuntahan ng mga doktor, nurse, midwife, medtech, 1 beses, 2 beses sa 1 linggo. Nang sa ganon, magiging mas madali sa may karamdaman na magpapagamot nang hindi na kailangan magbiyahe ng malayo. One of the cornerstones of a strong healthcare system is the provision of competent and efficient medical professionals. We will exert all efforts to improve the welfare of our doctors, our nurses, and other medical frontliners. Dapat din tayong magkaroon ng sapat na supply ng gamot na kinakailangan sa pang-araw-araw ng ating mga mamamayan. Sinimulan ko na ang pakikipag-usap sa mga kumpanya ng gamot dito sa Pilipinas at sa ibang bansa. Hinihikayat natin na buksan nila ang merkado upang bumaba ang presyo ng gamot. Halimbawa, kung mas marami ang mas murang generic o hindi branded na gamot sa merkado, mas bababa rin ang presyo dahil sa kompetisyon. Ang Department of Trade and Industry ay nakikipag-usap sa mga interesadong manufacturer ng generic drugs na papasok sa ating bansa. Inuutusan ko naman ang Philippine Competition Commission na pantay-pantay dapat at walang kartel sa hanay ng mga pharmaceutical companies. Dahil kapag bukas ang merkado, bababa ang presyo ng gamot para mapakinabangan ng ating mga mamamayan. This is one of the hard lessons that we learned when the pandemic struck, and therefore we must act on that shortcoming. In the educational sector, I believe it is time for our children to return to full face-to-face classes once again. The Department of Education, led by our highly able Vice President Sara Duterte, is now preparing for its implementation in the upcoming school year, with utmost consideration for the safety of students as we are still in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. We must ensure that our classrooms are safe for teachers, for students, and the entire academic community when they return to face-to-face classes. We continue to encourage everyone to get their booster shots in preparation for the resumption of in-person classes. This is one of the reasons I have directed the Department of Health and the Department of Interior and Local Government to undertake another rollout of booster shots. The condition and availability of schoolrooms for our students must also be addressed, again, in coordination with the Department of Public Works and Highways. Though some complications have arisen over the question of repair of school buildings in relation to the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, this will be ironed out. We have been in discussion with local government leaders, governors, and mayors in the last few weeks to determine with the LGUs what is actually practicable, what functions belong to the LGUs, and what belong to the national government. There have also been lengthy discussions on the continuation and viability of the K-12 school system. We are giving this careful review, and all necessary inputs and points of view are now being considered. In the longer term, we are instituting a program of refresher courses and retrainings for our teachers so they can stay abreast of the rapid growth in technology, especially in this post-pandemic world. As for the horror stories that we have heard about the poor quality of educational materials and supplies that are being given to our schools, this must end. Our children must always be equipped with the best that we can provide. Ang edukasyon ay ang tangi nating pamana sa ating mga anak na hindi mawawaldas. Kaya anumang gastusin sa kanilang pag-aaral ay hindi tayo nagtitipid. Hindi rin tayo nagtatapon. And once again, I am not talking about history or what is being taught. I'm talking about materials that are necessary for effective teaching in this day and age. Children now need connectivity to the internet. They need devices to use. They need computers, educational tools. So that they might participate fully in the digital community here and abroad. We must do better in the international rankings, especially when it comes to the so-called STEM subjects: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. These skills, this knowledge, are necessary for our young people to be able to compete in a highly technological and competitive world. The raw talent is there in our young people. It is up to our educational system to develop and to refine that great pool of talent. Foreign employers have always favored Filipino employees because of our command of the English language. This is an advantage that we must continue to enjoy. The internet has now become the global marketplace, not only for goods, services, but also for ideas, even extending to our own personal interactions. And the language of the internet, for better or for worse, is English. Therefore, the question of our medium of instruction must be continuously re-examined to maintain that advantage that we have established as an English-speaking people. On a related subject, we are entering an age of exponential adoption of technology. It is the fourth industrial revolution. This will be characterized by the infusion of technology into almost every facet of our lives. Breakthrough technologies in the areas of quantum computing, artificial intelligence, nanotechnologies, the Internet of Things, robotics, self-driving electric vehicles, 3D printing, virtual and augmented realities, among others, that will radically transform the way business is done. The scale and the speed at which these innovations are introduced universally into our everyday lives and activities is unprecedented in our recorded history. We cannot stand idly by. The mission of our Department of Information and Communications Technology is to identify and utilize these innovations to improve governance. It has the daunting task now of transforming our government into an agile bureaucracy that is responsive to the needs of the public. Provide good and solid data to ensure informed decision-making, as well as allow secure and seamless access to public services. The voluminous records stored in the government warehouses and archives have to be digitized. Those that are already stored in various inventories of data should be harmonized and shared across departments and agencies. Needless to say, these have to be kept in large data centers that are secure yet accessible. The national ID will play an important part in this digital transformation. For citizens to be able to seamlessly transact with government, their identity must be easily verifiable. We expect to issue 30 million physical IDs and 20 million digital IDs by the end of this year. The target is to accomplish the issuance of about 92 million IDs by the middle of next year. As the world moves into rapid digitalization, the digital divide will become more pronounced. The depth and breadth at which these technologies will be transformative in our lives is fully expected. This will open new opportunities for the creation of wealth, but will also likely create inequalities. Hence, universal connectivity will be a vital component in order to ensure that no citizen is left behind. I have therefore tasked the DICT to deploy digital connectivity across our various islands. This will be done through the implementation of the National Broadband Plan, the Common Tower Program, connecting our geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas via our Broadband ng Masa project. All relevant modes of digital transport should be utilized. These may be through a combination of terrestrial or submarine fiber optics, wireless, and even satellite technology. As our Public Service Act has opened the doors and removed the restrictions on foreign investment, we foresee an increase in direct investment of overseas players. This will translate into better quality, availability, and affordability of telecommunication services all over the country. We come now to infrastructure. The backbone of an economy is its infrastructure. The infrastructure program of the Duterte administration must not only continue, but wherever possible, be expanded. We shall confidently build on this firm foundation established by my predecessor, as it is in building an edifice. We must keep the momentum and aspire to build better, more. Necessarily, infrastructure development will remain a very high priority in our drive for growth and employment. Once again, I will not suspend any of the ongoing projects, as those have already been shown to be of benefit to the public that they serve. We will continue to study the proposals that have been made. Infrastructure development spending will be sustained at 5 to 6% of GDP. The planned expansion of infrastructure projects, I believe, would be possible if we continue to encourage the participation of the private sector in the development of our programs. Public-private partnerships, or PPPs, hold great potential for that expansion, for infrastructure development, and for innovation. Our infrastructure development is of primary importance, as it is a necessary element to improve many other sectors, to include agriculture, tourism, general economic activity, and even to governance. It is my belief also that we have missed some great opportunities to develop our rail transport system. It is clear in my mind that railways offer great potential, as it continues to be the cheapest way of transporting goods and passengers. We can build upon already existing lines by modernizing these old railway systems. There are dozens of railway projects on the ground, above the ground, below ground, not just in Manila, but in other regions, at various stages of implementation and with a combined cost of 1.9 trillion pesos. This administration is committed to finish building the current portfolio of investments, approve railway projects such as the North-South Commuter Railway System, the 33-kilometer Metro Manila Subway Project, the 147-kilometer North-South Commuter Railway System, the 12-kilometer LRT-1 Cavite Extension, the 23-kilometer MRT-7, and the common station that will connect LRT-1, MRT-3, and MRT-7. And beyond NCR, larger scale railway systems like the 102-kilometer Mindanao Railway Project, the Panay Railway Project, and the Cebu Railway System will be integrated as a vital part of our transport and communication systems. We will also continue to improve our roads and transportation systems in key cities throughout the country through various projects, such as the Cebu Bus Rapid Transit, Davao High Priority Bus System, Ilocos Norte Transportation Hub, the El Nido Transport Terminal. My order to the Department of Transportation, or DOTR, is really very simple. Full speed ahead. Improving our railway system along with modernizing existing airports and seaports will maximize our strategic location in the Pacific and connect our many islands. A key sector in our transformation plans is that of energy. Another fundamental requirement for growth and increased employment will be the availability of cheap, reliable energy. This even comes under the category of ease of doing business. If we are to attract investors, both local and foreign, to set up shop here in the Philippines. At present, our demand for energy far exceeds our reliable supply. We must increase the level of energy production. We must look at every possible option that would be appropriate for the Philippine situation. There is some room to expand our present power supply through existing power sources, but this is only to a very limited extent. We must build new power plants. We must take advantage of all the best technology that is now available, especially in the areas of renewable energy. Our search for new power sources should always be with an eye to improving the mix of the energy supply between traditional and renewable sources. The technology on renewable energy is progressing rapidly, and many of these technologies are appropriate for the Philippines. We have already begun windmill power. We are now expanding very quickly our solar power production. For both offshore and onshore wind turbines, for example, the World Bank has calculated that there is a potential for 255 gigawatts by the year of 2030. Solar power has steadily increased its efficiency in converting sunlight to electrical power, which is particularly attractive for the Philippines. Because unlike wind power, solar power is practical almost everywhere in the Philippines all year round. In the move to lowering our carbon footprint caused by energy production, our advancement to renewables will have a lead time. In the interim, natural gas will hold the key. We will provide investment incentives by clarifying the uncertain policy in upstream gas, particularly in the area close to Malampaya. This requires clarification of the processes and review of service contracts policy. I believe that it is time also to re-examine our strategy towards building nuclear power plants in the Philippines. We will comply, of course, with the International Atomic Energy Agency regulations for nuclear power plants as they have been strengthened after Fukushima. In the area of nuclear power, there have been new technologies developed that allow smaller-scale modular nuclear plants and other derivations thereof. Once again, PPPs will play a part in support as funding in this period is limited. Furthermore, we must examine the entire system of transmission and distribution for the purpose of finding ways to lower the price of energy to the consumer and to industry. We must expand the network of our transmission lines while examining schemes to improve the operation of our electrical cooperatives. All this in aid of reducing energy costs, especially but not limited to households. All this impetus for development and growth we undertake within the context of accelerating climate change and extreme weather conditions. Though we are a minor contributor to climate change globally, we have the unfortunate distinction of being one of the most vulnerable countries to the effects of climate change. For the welfare of our people, it is incumbent upon us to alleviate the effects of that vulnerability. The use of renewable energy is at the top of our climate agenda. We will increase our use of renewable energy sources such as hydropower, geothermal power, solar, and wind. Geographically, we are a disaster-prone country. Capacity building for our natural disaster resiliency is therefore a must. Investment in science and technology is imperative to enable us to have accurate weather forecasts and on-time disaster alerts. Studies show that already now many areas in the Philippines are at high risk from the rise in sea levels brought about by the increase in global temperature. We must adapt to this phenomenon with disaster-proof planning for our communities. We will also look into the precarious freshwater supply situation in the country, especially in our urban areas. Many of our water supply systems date back to the 1950s, and they must now be rehabilitated and improved. I've instructed the DNR, together with the DPWH, to explore possible partnerships with the private sector to address this crucial situation. The Philippines has excellent laws on the environment, but we have to guarantee that these laws are properly enforced. And this will require a great deal of coordination and cooperation between concerned government agencies and private stakeholders. Companies who exploit our natural resources must follow the law. We all have the responsibility to preserve this earth, for we are but custodians, and we will pass on this great treasure to future generations. There is no question that the preservation of the environment is the preservation of life. If we cannot mitigate climate change, all our plans for the economy, all our plans for our future will be for naught. Bawat Pilipino sa ibayong dagat na nagsasakripisyong lisanin ang kanyang pamilya sa Pilipinas upang maghanap buhay ay nararapat lamang magkaroon ng pamahalaang matatawag nilang tahanan habang nasa ibang bayan. Ito ang papel na gagampanan ng kagawaran ng manggagawang mandarayuhan o Department of Migrant Workers matapos itong ideklara bilang ganap na ahensya ng gobyerno ng isang taon. Ang kagawarang ito ang magsisilbing kanlungan ng ating mga kababayan sa gitna ng mundong walang kasiguruhan at mahigpit na kompetisyon. Ito ang maglalatag sa kanila ng mga oportunidad. Titiyak na ang kanilang mga hanap buhay ay tugma sa kanilang mga kasanayan. Maninigurong akma ang sahod at maayos ang kalagayan sa kanilang mga kumpanya at mga ngalaga sa kanilang mga pamilya habang sila ay nasa malayo. Gagawin natin ito sa pamamagitan ng pag-aalis ng red tape sa sistema ng pagsusulong ng digital empowerment. We shall automate the verification of contracts and issue secure overseas employment certifications that you can keep on your smartphone. I call on the Department of Migrant Workers and the DICT to make this a top priority. Tinatawagan ko rin ang Department of Foreign Affairs na makipagtulungan sa Department of Migrant Workers na tiyakin ang lahat ng mga diplomatic post ay tutulong na agarang maibalik sa trabaho ang mga ating mga overseas Filipino workers na nawalan ng hanap buhay nitong nakalipas na ilang taon. Mula sa 3 buwan ay gagawin na lang nating 3 linggo para sa isang dayuhang employer na iproseso ang mga papeles ng Pilipinas ng Pilipinong nais nitong kunin bilang empleyado. Aatasan din natin ang kagawaran ng gawing simple ang komplikadong handbook ng mga tuntunin at regulasyon para sa mga OFW. Nang sa gayon ay maging malwan ang mga transaksyon may kinalaman sa kanilang pangingibang bansa. Mula sa handbook na may 240 seksyon ay gagawin nating pamphlet na lamang na hindi hihigit sa 100 pahina. Mahirap na nga ang buhay. Kaya naman, ayaw pa natin makitang lalo pang nahihirapan ang ating mga manggagawang mandarayuhan sa pagtupad sa kanilang mga pangarap. Para sa mga kababayan nating naiipit sa kaguluhan, inaabuso at nanganganib ang buhay, ikinagagalak kong sa ilalim ng aking pamumuno ay ilulunsad natin ang One Repatriation Command Center o ORCC. Ilalaan natin ang isang social media platform ng Department of Migrant Workers at ang hotline upang matulungan agad at maligtas sila mula sa mas higit na kapahamakan. Noon, nangungutang pa ang isang ina ng bawat OFW upang sumakay ng barko para pumunta sa Maynila at mangatok sa iba't ibang ahensya para mapauwi ang anak na inaapi. Ngayon, kami na ang tatawag sa mga magulang ng OFW para sabihin sa kanila ang petsa kung kailan nila mayayakap at makakapiling ang kanilang mga anak. Sa kasalukuyan ay nakikipag-ugnayan tayo sa pamahalaan ng Saudi Arabia upang buksan muli ang deployment. Kaya natin at gagawin natin ang makipagnegosasyon na mabigyan ang ating mga kababayan doon ng tamang pasahod at mapangalagaan ang kanilang karapatan at kapakanan. Muli natin patitibayin ang respeto at pagkakaibigan ng ating dalawang bansa tulad ng namamagitan sa ating ama sa kanilang hari. Sa mga susunod na buwan ay magtutungo si Secretary Susan Ople sa Saudi Arabia upang tiyakin na may sapat na puwersang magsisiguro na mabubuksan muli ang empleo sa bansa at para maisulong ang ating kampanya laban sa human trafficking. Ngayon, para naman sa mga anak na naiwan sa Pilipinas, titiyakin ng Department of Migrant Workers sa pamamagitan ng OWA na sila ay maipapasok sa magagandang paaralan, magtuturo sa kanila ng financial literacy, mental wellness, sports, sining, kultura. Ito ay mangyayari sa pakikipagtulungan ng iba't ibang ahensya ng pamahalaan. Alagaan natin ang kabataang Pilipino sapagkat sila ang kinabukasan ng ating inang bayan. Sa ating mga kababayan na nasa ibang bansa, you deserve a home in government, not only for the money that you send home, but you are not cold tools of the economy. You deserve it for your sacrifices for our country and your perseverance and excellence in the global arena. You OFWs represent the fighting faith of the Filipinos as a nation and as a people. Let us transform your overseas journey into inspirational stories for all time. Thanks to you, our dear legislators, and of course to the man every OFW now refers to as their tatay, President Rodrigo Duterte. You passed the law that created this new home for our OFWs. On the area of foreign policy, I will not preside over any process that will abandon even 1 square inch of territory of the Republic of the Philippines to any foreign power. With respect to our place in the community of nations, the Philippines shall continue to be a friend to all, an enemy to none. The Philippines has always been open and welcoming to all our foreign friends and visitors. That is our worldview. That is our culture. But let me be clear. We are very jealous of all that is Filipino. We will be a good neighbor, always looking for ways to collaborate and cooperate with the end goal of mutually beneficial outcomes. If we agree, we will cooperate and we will work together. And if we differ, let us talk some more until we develop a consensus. After all, that is the Filipino way. But we will not waver. We will stand firm in our independent foreign policy with the national interest as our primordial guide. We commit to maintaining good relations with the rest of the world. As a matter of fact, it is my sincere belief that the need for strong bonds and collaboration among nations emerges in the direst of times, such as in a pandemic. The partnerships and alliances that we make with all will provide stability that all nations will need as we emerge into this new global economy. The Philippines will continue to promote stronger and multifaceted relationships with all our partners around the world. We are, in fact, grateful for the messages of support and offers of help that we have received from many of our friends in the international community. This has been communicated to us through the different envoys and ambassadors here in the Philippines. Such strong relationships can only be beneficial to all involved. As I am here today addressing the legislature, allow me now to propose legislation that we would like you to pass in support of these programs. 1. National Government Right-Sizing Program, a reform mechanism that seeks to enhance the government's institutional capacity to perform its mandate and to provide better services while ensuring optimal and efficient use of resources. Compared to previous government reorganization efforts, the NGRP will entail a comprehensive strategic review of the functions, operations, organization, system, and processes of the different agencies, and massive and transformational initiatives in agencies concerned, such as mergers, consolidations, splitting, transfer, and even the abolition of some offices. The right-sizing efforts will also involve the conduct of a comprehensive strategic review of functions, programs, and projects that will cut across various agencies. Number 2, a budget modernization bill. This seeks to institutionalize a cash-based budgeting system under Executive Order Number 91, Series 2019, to strengthen fiscal discipline in the allocation and use of budget resources by ensuring that every peso budgeted by the government would lead to the actual delivery of programs and projects. The full implementation of the CBS is timely and vital as the government executes response and recovery plans post-pandemic. Number 3, Tax Package 3 Valuation Reform Bill. This bill provides for the establishment of real property values and valuation standards across the country, and B, the development of real property information system that provides for the database of all real property transaction and declarations in the country. Number 4, Passive Income and Financial Intermediary Taxation Act. This seeks to reform the taxation of capital income and financial services by redesigning the financial sector taxation into simpler, fairer, more efficient, and a revenue-neutral tax system. It also represents to adopt a regionally competitive tax system. Number 5, E-Government Act, which provides for the establishment of the e-government master plan, which shall cover all e-government services and processes. Number 6, the Internet Transaction Act, or e-commerce law, which aims to establish an effective regulation of commercial activities through the Internet or electronic means to ensure that consumer rights and data privacy are protected, innovation is encouraged, fair advertising practices and competition are promoted. Online transactions are secured, intellectual property rights are protected, and product standards and safety are observed. Number 7, government financial institutions unified initiatives to distressed enterprises for economic recovery. This seeks to provide financial assistance to distressed enterprises critical to economic recovery through programs and initiatives to be implemented by the Land Bank of the Philippines, the Development Bank of the Philippines, and the Philippine Guarantee Corporation for purposes of addressing liquidity or solvency problems of MSMEs and strategically important industries to encourage their continued operation and maintain employment. Number 8, the establishment of a Medical Reserve Corps. Establishes a Medical Reserve Corps under the Health and Emergency Management Bureau of the DOH. The MRC shall be composed of licensed physicians, medical students who have completed their 4 years of medical courses, graduates of medicine, registered nurses, licensed allied health professionals. Number 9, National Disease Prevention Management Authority. This bill seeks to create the Center for Disease Prevention and Control attached to the DOH. Number 10, the creation of the Virology Institute of the Philippines. This will create the Virology Science and Technology Institute of the Philippines as an attached agency of the DOST. All offices and units under the DOST with functions related to virology shall now be transferred to the Virology Institute of the Philippines. Number 11, the Department of Water Resources. This seeks to create the Department of Water Resources and adopts the integrated water resource management as the strategic framework for national water management, policymaking, and planning. Number 12, Unified System of Separation, Retirement, and Pension. This grants a monthly disability pension in lieu of disability benefits provided under existing laws for military and uniformed personnel retired by reasons of disability. Number 13, the E-Governance Act. It promotes the use of internet, and other ICT to provide opportunities for citizens. Number 14, the National Land Use Act. This will provide for a rational and holistic management and development of our country's land and water resources, hold owners accountable for making these lands productive and sustainable, strengthen the LGU to manage ecological balance within its jurisdiction. It also provides for land use and physical planning framework as a mechanism in determining policies and principles to implement this legislative measure. Number 15, the National Defense Act. This seeks to amend the antiquated National Defense Act of 1935 to provide for a change in the military structure of the armed forces of the Philippines that is more responsive to current and future non-conventional security threats to the country's territorial integrity and national sovereignty. Number 16, Mandatory Reserve Officers Training Corps and National Service Training Program. This seeks to reinstitute the ROTC program as a mandatory component of senior high school programs, grades 11 and 12, in all public and private tertiary level educational institutions. The aim is to motivate, train, organize, and mobilize students for national defense preparedness, including disaster preparedness and capacity building for risk-related situations. Number 17, enactment of an enabling law for the natural gas industry. This seeks to foster the development of the midstream natural gas industry in a bid to strengthen Philippine energy security by diversifying the country's primary sources of energy and promoting the role of natural gas as a complementary fuel to variable renewable energy. Number 18, amendments to the Electric Power Industry Reform Act, or EPIRA. This aims to improve the implementation of the law's provisions and enhance its effectiveness to address the high cost of electricity, alleged market collusion, and insufficient power supply. The bill seeks to restructure the Energy Regulation Commission to foster accountability and improve the Commission's government system that would ensure consumer protection and in enhancing competitive operation of the electricity market. Number 19, amendments to the Build, Operate, Transfer law. This seeks to improve the implementation of the public-private partnership program and to be able to direct the desired outputs and outcomes in line with the strategic development targets of the country. Specifically, the amendments seek to, 1, address the ambiguities in the existing law, 2, address the bottlenecks and challenges affecting the implementation of the PPP program, and 3, foster a more competitive and enabling environment for PPPs. To my fellow Filipinos, ang aking mga minamahal na kababayan, batid ko na hindi madali ang ating pinagdaraanan sa nakaraang higit na 2 taon. Alam ko rin na ang bawat isa sa inyo ay ginagawa ang lahat ng inyong makakaya upang patuloy na harapin ang lahat na pagsubok sa kasalukuyan. I do not intend to diminish the risks and the challenges that we face in this turbulent time in global history. And yet, I see sunlight filtering through these dark clouds. We have assembled the best Filipino minds to help navigate us to this global crisis that we are now facing. We will endure. Let our Filipino spirit ever remain undimmed. I know this in my mind. I know it in my heart. I know it in my very soul. The state of the nation is sound. Thank you and good afternoon. Marami pong salamat sa inyong lahat.
All right, President Bongbong Marcos's first State of the Nation address. That was about, well, at least more than an hour of his plans and programs for the next 6 years. I say next 6 years because he did get into specifics on certain years, especially when it comes to inflation. Let's talk about this with Dean Tony Lavinia. I'll bring you in already. Dean Tony, thank you so much for your time. What were the highlights of the speech for you? But before we go there, I think it was quite clever for a speech like this to have started with the economy, education, the build, etc. And then in the end, have about 19 legislation that will work to be able to fulfill the first part of his State of the Nation address. Your thoughts, Dean Tony?
First, it was a good speech, compared especially to President Duterte's SONAs on all those 6 years, and I would say even most of President Aquino's SONAs in the previous years. This followed in a way a classic State of the Nation address. There's an executive summary at the beginning, emphasizing the most important thing you wanted to do. Then some details on various things, covering everything, as I said. Actually covering everything except
Did he miss anything?
No, well, I told you, national
National
defense, in terms of national security, in terms of the insurgency, which might be on purpose, that this is no longer as important as it used to be, as it was in the Marcos era, and that's why that's good. Didn't cover corruption, didn't cover human rights, which are very important areas, right? But pretty much the rest was covered. Now, it's interesting because you have to ask, and I'm a lawyer and I'm a constitutional law professor, what is the State of the Nation address for, and who is it addressed to? The people, right? But in speaking in English with some Filipino in between, it seemed that the speech was addressed more to policymakers, to diplomats,
lawmakers,
to investors, rather than to the ordinary Filipino, except some instances na where clearly was addressing the audience, like for OFW.
And is that a bad thing?
For example. The jury is still out on that. In a way, I like the first part, the economic part, very technical, right? Very sophisticated. But you could have lost the audience there. The Filipino audience, the man on the street. Ano yun?
Di ko maintindihan.
Di ko maintindihan.
Especially when he came out with all the numbers at the
with all
first
those
part,
numbers,
yeah.
etc. So I don't know. The jury is out. But certainly, economists would have been happy with that. Bankers were happy.
People who understand it.
Policy wonks like me were in heaven in terms of just, wow, these are really important things to debate. I don't necessarily agree with all of them because they're what you call neoliberal policies, same old as before. But clearly, that was the audience he minded.
Okay, so he talked about the economy and he also talked about food supply. He went to tourism, the DSWD, health, and many more. But let's first go to our chief correspondent, Pia Hontiveros. She's still there at the Batasang Pambansa. Pia, go ahead.
Hi, Pinky, and hi, Dean Tony. Well, it was an hour and 18 to 19-minute first State of the Nation address of Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr., Bongbong Marcos. His first SONA, the very first SONA that he'll be delivering. He began with saying what, as briefly as possible, what our problems are and what are the solutions. And he said very clearly, we will find the solutions. These are some of them. And then he started to enumerate everything, as Dean Tony was saying. He starts with the economy, agriculture, agrarian reform, tourism, even the creative industry, DSWD, helping the poor, health, no lockdown, he says, connectivity, education, English as a medium of instruction, because we are known as an English-speaking nation. That is an advantage. Technology, connectivity, infrastructure. Sabi niya, sustain lang yung build na program ng Duterte administration, itutuloy lang. Energy, he brought up renewable energy, and he was brave enough to bring up nuclear energy, nuclear power, disaster-proof planning, fresh water supply, migrant workers. And at a certain point, he also did bring up foreign... The West Philippine Sea, and I think this was the highlight, at around 5:05 p.m., where he says that I will not preside, and I'm paraphrasing here, I will not preside over any process that will abandon even a single square inch of territory. There was a standing ovation right there, and the applause was long and hard. And he repeated this phrase, friend to all, enemy to none. And then he said, but let me be clear, we are very jealous of all that is Filipino. This resonates with us in the last few years because of the West Philippine Sea. Everybody remembers the arbitral tribunal ruling of July 2016 and the rather interesting relationship that the Duterte administration had with Beijing, with China. Now, after that point, and of course he did talk about migrant workers also. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that. Now, after that high point, where he talked about how we were not going to be surrendering any inch, 1 square inch of our territory, then he launches into this litany of proposed legislation: National Government Right-Sizing Program, E-Government Act, Internet Transactions Act, establishing a Medical Reserve Corps, National Disease Prevention Management Authority, creating a Virology Institute, National Defense Act, and then he brings up another controversial proposal: mandatory mandatory ROTC, reinstating mandatory Reserve Officer Training Corps or ROTC for grades 11 and 12. That's the junior and senior year, no? Kung K-12 ang pag-uusapan. He talked about the enabling law for the natural gas industry, amendments to the EPIRA na matagal nang pinag-uusapan din yon, amendments to the BOT law, etc. And then he ends with that line, "We will endure. Let our Filipino spirit remains undimmed. The state of the nation is sound." Yes, like Dean Tony was saying, he did get very technical at the very beginning, and except for the portions where there was mas nagtagalog siya, mas nagvernacular siya nung ang pinag-uusapan agrarian reform, agriculture and farming, migrant workers. But most of the speech was in English, and then there was a lot of technical stuff, especially in the first part. But it seems to have been a pretty very clear, very concise and solid speech. Of course, like Dean Tony was saying, the jury's still out on this one. But this is, after 6 years of Duterte and his extemporaneous speeches, laced most of the time with invectives and curses. No, a very interesting speeches, by the way, which he gave. This was a very clear departure from that, which is always the case. No, in any new administration, maninibago ka naman talaga. And the usual. Every time we have a SONA, we always count the number of times people applaud, the audience applauds, and the count is that there were 70. 7-0, and 2 standing ovations. That second standing ovation, that's when he said that we're not going to be surrendering any inch of our territory. So that's it for now. Everybody's still there. Like you can see, live pictures from inside the plenary hall. There's a lot of picture taking, a lot of greeting, handshaking by President Marcos. Kanina, I just said, lahat naman tayo naninibago because it's a new administration and nasanay tayo sa calling Mr. Duterte President Duterte, but now he is former President Duterte, and this is the new president, President Marcos. And like I was saying earlier, at the start of the SONA, like I said during the inaugural, like I said during the canvassing, who would have thought, Who would have thought that we're going to have a Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr. as president? Pinky, Dean Tony?
Pia, thanks a lot. Back to Dean Tony. What were the most important parts of his State of the Nation address?
Pia was talking about the 2 standing ovations. The second one is one of those highlights, obviously, because that was the strongest you could ever say. Just so different from Duterte. And there was no excuse about we will not go to war. He said that also, that we're going to negotiate and negotiate. But it was very clear, not giving an inch. That's very important. The other one is also probably more important for most people. If I'm not mistaken, the most applauded, it also had a standing ovation, is the health part. No more lockdown. I have to say, I was relieved. Because I'm really afraid we're going to do a lockdown again because of this surge. And that is going to be really fatal for the Philippine economy, fatal for many. We have to find another way of dealing with the pandemic other than. Then he said, the standing ovation was, we will establish all these specialty hospitals in the regions, please. I am from a region.
Not only in NCRs.
No, not only, but in fact in all the regions, that's my understanding. Maybe 2 or 3 regions can share, some of these depending on the geography, right? But having a kidney center, a heart center, a lung center, a children's specialization hospital in all our regions, the people want that.
So you were very happy with those 2?
These 2 are the highlights of the
So let's talk about that. It was a relief, I'm sure, for you and many others that wala nang mangyayaring lockdown. But of course, came with what is important here. We need to boost, encourage the public to get their booster shots. And we have to have an information drive about COVID-19. And then he went to say what we are experiencing at the moment, alert level remains. However, even a couple of days ago or a week ago, this will be restudied to be in tune with the present situation.
Yes, because at alert level 4, you lock down, right? Essentially, or alert level 5, certainly. So it's very important to to change that in fact, we follow the instructions of the president, there is no more lockdown. And he did say how that will happen. Also have better hospitals, more hospital beds, of course, get to that state where people don't even have to go to the hospital. What he didn't mention, which is also very basic, which people are doing now, is testing. Testing, so that you're always aware of where we are and make changes.
What kind of changes did you want to hear about testing, for example?
Well, I would have wanted universal testing, right? I mean, on a regular basis, similar to what the Chinese did, but not doing what the Chinese do, which is that when several people test, they lock down.
Complete lockdown.
But it guides you on what to do. So, for example, if I'm testing and I'm tested and I'm positive, then I limit my interaction without having to be locked down. I can still work, but I have to make sure I'm masked, because many people are no longer masking now. If you are positive or you are with people that are positive, you have to mask. But you shouldn't have to lock down unless you have symptoms, which makes it dangerous for yourself.
You don't need to quarantine, basically.
You don't have to quarantine.
Yeah. Unless you have symptoms.
Unless you have symptoms.
I mean, basically, you were saying kailangan na tayong masanay sa virus.
Yeah.
In English, it really means, as even others have said over and over again, we have to learn to live with the virus.
Di ba kung may sipon ka, may ubo ka, may colds ka, if you have colds, for example, you take measures for your own safety and for the safety of people around you. But that's why testing is so important, because that's the one which will guide you and guide people to calibrate. But don't give lockdown as an option anymore.
Wala na lockdown. That was very clear. Let's talk about the economy. There were so many numbers. It got quite complicated, even for someone like me. There are a lot of short-term and long-term plans in terms of what inflation would be this year. I think he put it at about 4.5 to 5.5%. But there was even other GDP to debt ratio, etc. Until 2028. What was clear? Help us understand what is clear with regards to numbers when we're talking about the economy.
Well, what's clear about the economy, he says, is that we are faced with a crisis, some of our own making, for example, the debt crisis, some caused outside, the energy crisis, Ukraine, the food crisis. But we're not helpless before that, and we have to look forward to the future. And we do it, he summarized it at the beginning of that part, sound fiscal management.
Right.
In other words, we have to nurture our finances well.
Sa Tagalog, ano yun? Sound fiscal management.
Alagaan natin yung pera ng bayan. Alagaan natin yung pera ng bayan, huwag tayong magastos lang, magwaldas lang, at gagamitin natin sa tamang paraan. At siguraduhin natin, we want to make sure na the money we have will actually grow and there'll be more investment. So a lot of that was intended for investors. Basically, saying investors, don't worry. We are a responsible group of managers here. In fact, at the end, sabi niya, I have the best minds of the Philippines to deal with us. And the economy, I can say yes. As I said, I might have disagreements, especially on social issues related to poverty and social inequality. But we know that they are the best minds that really knows economics quite well. And I think, now there's something unique about what Marcos said, because he's asking Congress, this is the first time ever this has happened, he's asking Congress to pass this whole plan, which is a plan, in a joint resolution. It's not a law, because it's not a law, it's a plan. So that Congress is committed to the plan. It's not just the executive branch, but Congress, through a joint resolution, will actually commit itself to the plan, which means if laws are needed, for example, sa taxes, in-avoid niya yung new taxes as much as possible. Pero sabi niya yung digital taxes. Diba?
I was gonna go there.
No,
Anong pagkaintindi natin doon sa sinabi niya about generating new taxes? It was
digital
just
economy.
on digital,
It's the digital economy. It's people earning money through the internet, enterprises making money through the internet.
But that's it, right?
That's it lang. Yun ang narinig ko lang na new taxes dun sa sinasabi niya. Kailangan ko pag-aralan yung mga batas na there's several economic bills there, and some might have tax components. But generally, yung bill, yung kanyang is just on the digital economy kasi hindi pa nakakapture yan sa
But you know what's
access.
interesting about it, Ding Tony? He had a number that how much can be generated in terms of taxing the
Yes.
digital
Yes,
aspect.
200 billion, I think, right? Or is that the number?
I don't know. What I wrote here was 11
Or 12 billion.
11 billion.
Baka
yeah.
11 billion.
Yeah. So malaki yun.
Malaki yun. Well, not really. In the scope of the economy and what is needed, that's not that big. I thought it was more than that. But yun nga, was it 11 million or 12 million or 12 billion or was that
Billion, yeah, 11
billion, di ba? No, definitely billion, but was that 12 billion or was that 120
I wrote here
billion?
11. Okay, so more or less.
Yes, but it's still substantive in terms of But in terms of the budget, in terms of the revenue you already have, that's really not too much.
Okay.
I mean, so I will.
But it's an area that will be tapped.
Yes.
That will add on to the revenue of government. That's the only thing we heard when it came to taxes. We agree.
From what I see, from what I heard, yeah.
Okay, and then very quickly, can we talk about food supply? He talked about so many things. And prior to the State of the Nation address, pinag-usapan na po niyan, fertilizers, going to talk to government. It's going to be a government-to-government approach for fertilizers, keeping it at a high yield, low production cost, even land. What was your take on his...
Most of them are technology-related changes and inputs. We can make our agriculture more productive. It's also production-oriented, rather than what we call rights-based, except the agrarian reform part, which he committed to do, to finish, and he committed actually a moratorium on interest payment, which is actually really good for farmers. I mean, that's important. What I thought was missing is what this would mean to the ordinary farmer. And honestly, for me, what was missing from that speech is what does it mean for the basic workers, the basic sectors rather, workers, farmers, indigenous peoples, no mention of indigenous peoples at all in the speech when they're, the hardest hit for climate change, militarization and things like that. So urban poor, they seem to be missing from his worldview, or maybe couldn't see that as important. And agriculture, one disappointment wasn't very clear about what he would do with the rice tariffication law. There's certainly farmers have been asking to have that repealed.
Am I going to take a look at this again? Should this be amended or reviewed? No mention of that.
No mention about that. For a while, he was talking about that as Agriculture Secretary, but now maybe he has been pushed back because I know many of the economists that are working with him, supported the rice tariffication bill, but that could have a great impact on ordinary farmers.
He did say, though, that, but to me it was a bit broad. Financial assistance will be a program and policy of this administration. And when he said this was about the food supply, talking about farmers. And then it went on to something he's mentioned in the past, and I would say every administration also in the past, they've talked about farm-to-market roads. But here, he says that this will be done, the DA together with the DPWH. Okay. And then it went to agrarian reform and the beneficiaries where loans will be...
Loan amortizations will be forgiven for a year, is what my understanding was.
Right. And then you have tourism, DSWD, health, as we mentioned a while ago. Just last topic, education. So sinabi na niya, we are headed towards a face-to-face class, full implementation, possibly. And we just need to make sure that our classrooms, our spaces are safe for the students, the teachers, and everybody else involved in this. What's the takeaway here on at least face-to-face classes?
Well, we really have to go towards that, right? But obviously, where it's not safe, you have to find ways to adapt around that and to respond to that. So I welcome that. Now, although, to be honest, I don't welcome the mandatory ROTC part because I went through that and it was a disaster. If ever they do that, they have to give it as an option to people who do not, who should not be doing that for health reasons, for ideological reasons, for religious reasons.
But there could be exceptions to that, right?
Well, there should be. The law should allow for conscientious objections and things like that. But my experience of RTC was terrible. In Ateneo de Manila, it was the worst day of every week. Really, because we didn't learn anything while we were subjected to all of this abuse. So, if I'm all for it, if they actually fix it to make it a good experience, a motivating experience for most people, not just for the officers. Officers do well. The real officers, they do well, and I know many of them, and they did well. But for the ordinary student, it was a disaster for all of those years, and it might be a disaster again.
And to summarize, you were very happy with the speech.
Happier than I was. There are gaps, but happier than I was ever with any Duterte speech, and frankly, most of Aquino's speeches as well.
All right, political analyst, Dean Tony Lavinia. Dean, thank you so much. Good to see you again. Take care of yourself.
Thank you.
And this is a CNN Philippines special coverage of the first State of the Nation address of President Bongbong Marcos. I'm Pinky Webb. Thank you for watching.
The 4 army men who died in that controversial police operation are now here in Manila. Sanay na raw, no? This is not unusual para sa mga taga dito ang ganitong klaseng sitwasyon. They did not hold it in their traditional